Jeremy?
Yes.
How are you? Welcome to the program. We are talking Wasp today. And Wasp is your new series for Marvel. It's a continuation of a adjacent Wasp series that was canceled and then brought back.
We did 8 issues, and kind of slow finding an audience because none of the Wasps has ever had a book. Not to mention Nadia, who's fairly new. And so we got those 8 issues out. They didn't do great in the direct market, but once people started to get a handle on what it was, it did really well in trade. A lot of people picked it up afterwards. I kept getting messages from people after it was already canceled that were like, "When is the next issue?" It's it's not happening. But then it did well enough in the other markets that Marvel decided to bring it back.
Why didn't they do issue 9? It was just they loved the number 1s. They were like, hey, we'll bring it back, but we'll do a number 1 because this way there's more excitement.
I think the hope was to bring in some new audience that hadn't read the first 8 as well, so that they could come in and feel like they were jumping in at the beginning. We did our best to make that issue feel like both a continuation of the first 8, but also something that was fresh and new. Because at that point, the book hadn't been coming out for a year. There'd been all these things that she'd done in between. So we wanted to kind of have a fresh feel to it, and I think having it be number 1 felt right for them and for me. I think nothing lasts much further than 20 at this point anyway. So
I jumped on. I didn't read the old. Well, at that time I hadn't read the old Wasp book, and I had read about the mental illness aspect of issue 4. And reading that solicit, I was like, oh my god, this is a book I really need to read, basically to see how the mental illness was handled. And I was shocked because I had bought 4 issues. And I said, okay, this is a good book. I like it. I like the artwork. I like the writing. And then issue 4 really just slams you. The Wasp, you find out, is bipolar. And you really see her running around, and showing the really manic aspects of bipolar. And her friends then trying to come in to be supportive. And it doesn't really go well for them. How did this all come about, I guess, in the first place, being this is the story I want to tell?
So we had talked about it when we did the first volume, because there is bipolar has that genetic aspect to it. It's much more common to get it if one of your parents had it, and Hank does have it. It's something they talked about quite a bit in Avengers AI, but it's traditionally been dealt with in some pretty different ways. And I think we wanted to do something with it with Nadia, and we sort of set up this goal of it really being the 21st century kind of version of this story, because there's a lot of stories that deal with mental health in comics, but mostly it's oh, this guy's crazy and therefore evil. Batman has a literal mental asylum full of bad guys. So we wanted to have a chance to deal with mental illness in a way that doesn't demonize it, and that deals with a young character who's a hero, who's optimistic, who's dealing with this stuff for the first time, and really give a feel for what that's like, and tell sort of with the non-traditional story in comics of mental health, because that's something people deal with every day, and it's not just a plot point for comics. So being able to do that in a way that is respectful and fit in with both the character and the story in interesting ways was really important for me. And it was something we talked about from the beginning, and then didn't really have a chance to do in the original volume. And to his credit, when it started back up, Tom Brevoort, one of the first things he said to me about the new volume was we can't, already that we're not promised a certain number of issues. So if there's a story you want to tell it. Get it out there, do that, make that your first thing, because you can build up for 10 issues and then not be able to deliver on it. So make sure you get to what you want to do. And so that's when I think Alana and I settled on this was the kind of story we wanted to tell. We wanted to not base the whole thing around just the mental health stuff, but build slowly to that over the course of the first 3 issues, and then really have that be a turning point for issues 4 and 5.
I deal with mental health personally. I have depression, and I think the hardest part of dealing with depression is always feeling like you're alone. And one of the great things about this book, and when I was reading it, I was really really drew me to it was her and her friends, and even her maybe not being able to deal with the mental health issues, but the support of her friends. And I thought, probably isn't much of a question, but it's like, is that your intent, to show that if you have issues, it's better to have friends and family involved with it, and they can help you along? You don't have to be a superhero to get that support?
Yeah, I feel like that's the trick with a lot of like mental health stuff, right? Is like, you feel like you're alone. You feel like you're the only person who's ever experienced this, and it's part of, the disorder that's telling you that like, especially with depression, is like, you feel alone. You feel like there's no way out. And the hardest thing to do is the thing you need to do, which is like reach out and talk to people and like realize that you're not the only one, right? And that's the experience I wanted to have Nadia have in this. Is like, so often in comics, like, the answer is to punch something in the face, whether it be Thanos or something else. But like, mental health is not something you can punch. So like, and it's not something you can beat. It's something you can beat back, that you can learn from, that you can, improve upon how you deal with it. But like, it's a matter of like being able to talk to somebody and being able to like reach out when you need help, and realize that this is not necessarily something that you can just beat on your own. And that's, I mean, not spoilery, but like, that's ultimately what Nadia does. Like, is because she says in the book, like, as a superhero, that it's easy to fight things. It's easy to like stand up for what's right and invest in that. But it's hard to admit when you can't do anything about something. And I think that's something that we don't deal with often enough with superheroes. It's like, so often superheroes' success is about like going beyond their physical limitations and doing something that is dangerous or even should hurt them. And that's, I mean, that's what bipolar mania makes you do. Is like, your mind is making you go beyond that point, and like, you don't know where to stop, and you don't know when you're not doing the right thing anymore. And that to me was like a real interesting point in the story. It's a real interesting dynamic, because like, this thing that we're used to of thinking as the heroic point is a thing for her that like she does naturally that is unhealthy, and for her to like have to stop and realize that and reach out for help is the hardest thing for her.
I'm going to wrap up with one last question and a lot of flattery. It has been a long time since I've read a Marvel book this amazing. And it is, I can easily say, this is the best book from Marvel being printed right now, if not one of the best books in comics. I know you've gotten a very positive reception inside and outside of the comic world. Is the book going to stay around for, a lot longer now that there's a big spotlight on it? And can we expect just a lot more greatness from you?
I would love to say that I know the answer to that. Right now, we're cleared through issue 10. I'm putting final edits on that. After that, I think to some extent it's up to the market. If it's something that all the good reviews and talk and everything reflect, and people buying the book and all that, I definitely think there's a desire in Marvel to keep it around. So if people are interested in it, they want to see it continue, the best thing they can do is buy it and talk about it and support it. Because the trade of all this story that we've been talking about comes out in April, and we're also doing a reprint of the first 8 issues in a little digest format next month. So there's all the chance in the world to support it before like that decision is made one way or another.
Thank you, Jeremy, so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.